Hi, good morning, students. Hope all are keeping fine. Stay safe and be home. Today, we are going to discuss about our third chapter, scoping. What is a scope? Scope refers to the visibility of variables, parameters, and functions in one part of a program to other part of the same program. So, scope refers to the visibility. What do you mean by visibility? Visibility is nothing but in which part of the program a variable, a parameter, or a function can be accessed. That is what known as visibility. So, scope is determining the availability or accessibility of a variable or a parameter or a function in a program. It's known as scope. Why scope? What is the necessity of scope? Once we define a variable or a parameter or a function, it can be accessed by any part of our program. That is why we need the help of scope. Mapping. The process of binding a variable name with an object is called mapping. So, A is equal to B or A is equal to 5. So, how we bind a variable name with an object? So, here suppose A is equal to 5. A is the variable name and 5 is the object. So how do we bind it together? That is what known as mapping. So in order to map an object with the variable name, we use equal to sign. In most of the programming language, equal to sign is used for mapping the variable and the object. Next is namespaces. Namespaces are containers for mapping names of variables to objects. Programming languages keeps track of all mapping with namespaces. So namespaces are the containers which helps to store or which help to map the variables to the object. It's nothing but the variable names. Any variable name can be used. Those are known as namespaces. What is the lifetime of variable? What do you mean by lifetime of variable? The duration for which a variable is alive is called its lifetime. So, how far a variable can withstand in a program? It's known as the lifetime of the variable. So some variables will be used once in a program or by only a single section in a program. Some will be used by the entire program until the end of the program. So whatever it may be, the lifetime determines how far the variable is used in a program. LEGB rule. What is LEGB first? L stands for local, E stands for enclosed, G stands for global, and B stands for built-in. The LEGB rule is used to decide the order in which the scopes are to be searched for scope resolution. The scopes many scopes we are using in our programming languages like local, enclosed, global, built-in. So in a program we may use all four or one or two we may be using. So what is this rule is which one should be searched first. It is a hierarchical order. It is searching in the highest to lowest order. So local scope, it is defined within a function or class. A local scope variable will be defined within a function or a class. Enclosed scope will be defined inside the enclosing functions, that is nested function. Global scope is defined at the top of all the functions. Before we start writing any other function, a global scope variable will be defined. The last one is built-in function or built-in scope. They are reserved names in the built-in functions, modules. So already when a programming language is created, some names are reserved for some particular functions. So for some particular purpose. Those are known as built-in scope. So LEGB rule is used for deciding the order in which the scope are to be searched. Types of variable scope. There are four types of variable scope. They are local, enclosed, global and built-in. They are determined or they are represented with the letters L, E, G and B. Local scope. Local scope refers to the variables defined in current function. Always, a function will first look up for a variable name in its local scope. Only if it does not find it there, the outer scopes are checked. So, in a program, the function will be always looking for the local scopes where the variables are declared within a function or a class. If any variable is not declared as a local scope, only then it will be checking for the other scopes. The innermost scope which is available or which is there is the local scope. For example, here we have a program like display a function a equal to 7, print a and display. So this part is the innermost part of the program and this is the outermost. So within the innermost part we have declared as a is equal to 7. We have declared as a equal to 7. So this is the local variable. This is the local variable. Or this variable is known as the local scope variable. So when the program executes, when we call the function display, we will be getting the output as 7, the value of a, which is the local scope. So always a function or a program will be looking for the local scope variable. Only if this local scope variable is not available, Then it goes to the outer scope. The next scope is global scope. A variable is declared outside all the function in a program is known as global scope variable. It can be accessed inside or outside all of the other functions in a program. So as I told you in the beginning, a variable which is declared before any function is declared, those variables are known as global scope variables. The speciality of global scope variable is that it can be accessed by its own functions or classes and by the other functions and classes in a program. Anybody can access it. That is the speciality of global scope variable. Here we have an example. A is equal to 10. So A is equal to 10 is a variable which is declared as global scope variable, and here A is equal to 10, which is declared as global scope variable. And you see in the innermost function we have A is equal to 7, which is the local scope. A is equal to 7 is the local scope and A is equal to 10 is the global scope. So when we run this program, we will be getting 7 as the output first. You know why we get 7 as the output first is that it is the local scope variable. So when a function or in a program, a local scope variable is checked first. That is why the value 7 we have in the beginning first. And then the next is a global scope variable, that is A equal to 10. That is why we get 10 as the second value. Next one is the enclosed scope variable. A variable which is declared inside a function which contains other function definition within it. The inner function can also access the variable of the outer function. This scope is called enclosed scope. When a compiler or interpreter search for a variable in a program, it first search local and then search enclosing scopes. So a variable which is declared within a function is known as enclosed scope. So we have already discussed about the hierarchical order. So the first preference is given to the local scope variable. Second preference is given to the enclosing scope variable, enclosed scope variables. So in a program, the first value what we get will be the value of the local scope variable, then the enclosed scope variable, and then the remaining scopes. So here we have an example. 3 variables are given here. So here in the above example, display1 is defined within display function. So display is a function where display1 is within that function. It is nested inside that. Display1 is nested in display function. So the variable A defined in display can be even used by display1 because it is also a member of display. So here this function, that is display and display1, are function within display. Display1 is a function which is created or which is developed inside the function display. So the value of a or the variable a can be accessed by both display as well as display1 function. So that is why we get the output 10 and 10. So the variable a is defined as a local variable as well as a enclosed scope variable. Built-in scope. The names are preloaded into the program. Any variable or module which is defined in the library function has built-in or module scope. They are loaded as soon as the library files are imported to the program. So, a built-in scope variable or built-in scope function is a function which is already created in the programming language. It is a pre-built name. It is created with a particular purpose. When do we access it? It can be accessed when the library files are loaded into the program or imported into the program. So here the entire program is given built-in or module function. Those are functions or files which are associated with the software. So a built-in function is a function or a scope where the names are preloaded into the program or already created in the program. So today we have learned and understood about what is scope, what is mapping, what is namespaces, what is LEGB rule, what are the different types of variable, how it is used, and so on. So the remaining portions will be dealt in the next class.